is only an alert. We have all received it. So my first question, considering that you've got a flight at 4 p.m. For Karachi, my first question to Shayan Saab and the second question to Shadab Saab. Shayan Saab, institutional change. Has the RGF support extended by UNDP and FCDO led to a shift in PDMA's institutional capacities? Specifically, how do PDMA structures, systems, and day-to-day decisions making compared with the pre-RGF scenario before 2023 has changed? So institutional change, if you will, pre and post RGF. तो वो टाइम मैनेजमेंट का फालूदा निकल गया है.
तशरीफ ला सके ताकि हमारे सेशन पैनलिस्ट अगले सेशन के उनके खाने के दौरान समाप्त फरमा सके. तो प्लीज आप खाना लेके टेबल पर तशरीफ ले आइए.
I'll start again. Thank you very much for coming all the way from Karachi. Weather forecast was not on our side, but I hope it's only an alert. Coming directly to the question, considering that you've got a flight at 4 p.m. To Karachi, and as people move towards the front, my first question is to Shayan Shah Saab, Director Operations, PDMA Sindh. Sir, institutional change. Has the RGF support extended by UNDP, FCDO led to a shift in PDMA's institutional capacities? Specifically, how do PDMA structure systems and day-to-day decision-making compared with the pre-RGF scenario before 2023 has changed? So institutional change in a short.
Thank you. Yes, RGF project has played a pivotal role in institutional strengthening of PDMSN. Under this project, we were able to come up with few of the shortcomings that we were witnessing in PDMA. Initially, we did not had the DRR wing. We had a very limited scope of POC. Similarly, we did not have any our officer or our representative at district level. And the decisions that were carried out were of manual on the manual data. So under this, we were able to establish a DRR wing in PDMA, and the hiring is in process. The process of hiring is in process, and hopefully we soon be able to have our DRR wing fully functional. Similarly, we have expanded the POC and through technical assistance of experts. And now we are piloting in 3 districts, that is Jamshoro, Thatta, and Noshoro Feroz, by bringing up disaster management officers at district level who will be working closely with district administration. And this will really help us to gain the on-ground data and analysis that we lack at the moment. And as far as the data collection question you raised, yes, currently we are still on this phase that we are receiving the data manually, but it is going to take time because the dashboard has been prepared by the RGF consultants. And now we are advocating with district administration and relevant departments to start using that, start updating it. And once it is updated and the data starts flowing, obviously it will be a data-driven decision through technology.
Last question from my side, considering time constraint and your flight, are there any, and learning from the previous session also, are there any key messages for FCDO and UNDP coming right from the provincial government, PDMA, as you are occupying a seat which oversees all the province? the disasters. So are there any key messages? This was a pilot, so what next, please?
Yes, we would request FCDO and RGF people to continue assistance in this regard because we have 30 districts as a whole in Sindh, and currently we only have pilot in 3 districts. So we will be needing assistance to replicate this system in 27 districts.
Thank you very much, sir. Coming all the way from PDMSN, Shadab Saab, aapki bhi, you've got a flight at 4 p.m. So I will first ask you, and you have done the evaluation of this pilot. Pilot was only in 3 districts, and we have carefully chosen the 3 districts in Sindh so that we have a few districts closer to Karachi and a few districts which are far away from Karachi, just to get a flavor of. And I've been to Tata, and I've before the floods, I think August, September last year. So I've seen how the district management gears up when they get the alert that flood is coming all the way from the northern areas. Evaluation is done. My question to you, what are the key findings from the rapid review of DTRMU, that is District Disaster Risk Management Unit establishment, and what do they imply for province-wide scale-up? Please.
Thank you very much. Thank
In
you.
short, what was the evaluation all about?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me here. I thank SDPI, UNDP for giving me this opportunity, and my very sincere thanks to all the people in PDMA who provided the inputs. To answer your questions, I was pleasantly surprised. Number one, District Disaster Management Unit is a means of operationalizing DDMAs, District Disaster Management. So DDMAs were conceived and designed, but they could not be operationalized for one reason or another. But this experiment, this has now established the fact that the technical assistance-based, TA-based inputs are very important and valued. My own experience of working with the government, I have realized, I was pleasantly surprised to find out that the technical assistance part is now recognized as a very valuable contribution that comes from the donors. So both the PDMAs and the district people, they were very appreciative of the fact that this assistance was provided to them. And based on that fact, the evidence of that is that these districts, for the expansion, the districts that have been chosen, they have been chosen on a very objective-based criteria. So all the risk management criteria were used to prioritize the expansion of the now being actually used in improving the disaster management response throughout the Sindh. Second thing is that the design that has been done so far, it is marked by very clearly defined function. What will DDRMUs people do with the 7% staffing in each of the units? What they would do, how they would interact with PDMAs and the district administration. So this is very well clearly defined, and it is good to find out that it is there. And finally, I would highlight that the cost benefit analysis of this is extremely positive. For example, for a mere amount of less than 200 million rupees, which is 192 million, something like that, which is for the staffing cost of the expansion, the entire province, 70% of the province will get the coverage in terms of disaster management response. So only by spending 20 million rupees, which is in the overall context of the overall budget, is peanuts. So it will be a great help, and it has been acknowledged that this small little input is creating a very positive cost benefit analysis. So this is the key findings of those. So staffing is good, adequate staffing, functional clarity, positive cost benefit response. So based on all these and the value that the users or that the government people assign to the technical assistance received, so I would like to recommend that there is one gap that needs to be addressed. And that gap is, although a little under 200 million rupees has been allocated or will be allocated through government's own sources for the staffing cost, but there is little budget for the operational cost of these people. So it doesn't make sense that you, even if 10 to 15% budget is extra allocated for the operational cost, which means for the community trails, for the risk assessment, for the traveling and training, so the entire package will become much more cost benefit positive in that sense. So that is one area which needs to be looked into, and I hope that my report, when it goes to the finance, then they will have a positive response to that. But that thing, having put the infrastructure in place, having put the people in place, then comes the question of providing technical assistance on a continuous basis for some time, so that this function, DDREMUs, they take root within the overall government system. So although the DMIS is a very pivotal thing that has been created, and it has it brings all the information management at one place, but still its integration with various other functions is still lacking. So that would be a technical assistance moving forward that would be required. So overall, I must bring it to the light that Sindh has taken a lead in establishing DDRMUs all over Pakistan, which is a big thing for us. And moving forward, technical assistance in the form of supporting the expansion part of it. It should be, while government is providing funds to it, the FCDO and other, I was gladly surprised to hear that maybe SNG-III is coming, maybe. So if that comes along, and I hope it comes along, then some portion must be allocated for the ongoing technical, so that these functions, these seeds that have been sowed, they become what you could say fully grown trees.
Thank you. Last small question. How important it is, and Minister Saab has already highlighted the local government. So how important it is for PD and for this evaluation to consider, you've talked about the government, FCDO, the local people, the community. So I'll throw the ball to you guys. Community engagement, behavior change, how do you see that coming in the post-RGF scenario? So Shadab Saab, Sabaz, and then.
Okay, I would echo what Shyam Saab said, that community has outpaced government in terms of their response for disaster response, but they have experienced it so many times, and they have experienced disasters so many times, and on the basis of, on self-help basis, they are outpacing government response or government service delivery to them. So which is a very positive thing that is happening. But if somehow that positive motivation and communities' own capacity could be strengthened, then government's burden will be much more reduced.
Shankar.
I'll take from here, as rightly pointed out by Fariduddin Saab. You see, the purpose of these people at district level was to enhance the capacity of local as well as local government departments. So once these people are in these 3 pilot districts, their responsibility will be to give trainings to community, to make them aware about the expected disasters, because you see, we already have conducted the MHVRA at UC level in Sindh province. So we had the multi-vulnerability risk assessment of districts. Now we want to go at the lowest tier, sensitize district administration, government functionaries, as well as community, that there is a threat which can only be averted once we are resilient enough, we are trained enough. So that we will try to achieve through this pilot project.
Thank you so much. आप लोगों के आने का बहुत शुक्रिया. With many thanks, I'll let you go, and it was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you. And can I please Kashif Saab को बुलवा लें?
Assalamualaikum ji. May I please request Mr. Kashif Ali to join me on stage? Yes, Mr. Mohammed Shayan, Mr. Shadab Fariduddin, as I believe he's left. Ji, and Mr. Suhaib Khan.
Shukri Rahman and Shoaib Khan, can you join us on the stage, please?
आइए सर.
Please, thank you so much for joining us, Shoaib and Kashif Ali. All the way from Sindh. Pleasure to have you over here. My question to, first question to Kashif Ali Saab, Additional Secretary, Finance, Department, Government of Sindh. DRR financing pathway. What is a realistic pathway and timeline for making disaster risk financing a regular budget function rather than an emergency response? So regular budget function rather than an emergency.
Thank you. Government of Sindh is very clear in disaster-related financing. We believe that we have to plan first, rather to wait for some disaster, rather to wait for some accident to happen and then we to fund it. Now the Government of Sindh is planning to initially fund everything that counts to eradicate, to minimize the after effects of the floods or any pandemic. Recently, we have worked with under RGF. We have designed the rules, and there is a process that we are following. That the HR, intensive HR, is being hired for PDMA. We have, as I earlier mentioned, that we have created a fund for PDMA fund, and we have incorporated flood-related investments and in flood-related expenses in ADP schemes as well. So that tunes to 178 billion amounting PTR that are reflected against ADP schemes, which are to cater the flood-related activities. PDMA is on the forefront. Finance Department, PND, and PDMA. These are the three main government departments which are working in sync and coordinating with the districts which are prone to flood in Sindh province. Recently, we have received a case from PDMA where we have to improve the HR, and 178 million per month would be the requirement which finance would be releasing to PDMA. The summary is in place, and the matter will be going to the cabinet once the rules are framed and HR is hired. So we believe that we are very much in line, and in the very next financial year, there will be a breakthrough. That pilot will be implemented in all the 23 districts of Government of Sindh.
Thank you. I'll move on to Adnan Saab, Additional Deputy Commissioner, Jamshoro. My question to you is basically, and I've alluded to it when we were talking to the other two panelists, community engagement. You are directly linked with community. You are right at the heart of the disaster management circle, if you will, people who were most affected. So community behavior, communities often resist evacuation, despite warnings. From a governance perspective, not just communication, what needs to change to influence this behavior?
First of all, thank you. We must we must admit the fact that the people living for centuries in the riverbed or on the coastal areas, they do not move on a warning sign. They do not move. They do not evacuate solely on a warning sign. The push factors for evacuation are not so influencing their behavior. We need to have a pull factor such as logistic support for transport, for shelter. We have to develop a trust. See, for example, in 2025, we have a flood. In that case, we successfully evacuated around 25 to 30,000 people from the riverbed, Indus riverbed, from district Jamshoro. The only reason that we successfully evacuated those people who were actually living in the riverbed and cultivating their fields, because we provided them logistic support. We provided them transport, we provided them proper shelter. It is actually a sole experience of people with the governance of the district government, whether the government is providing the alternative to it. So, since they have experienced that we are actually providing them a better alternative, better shelter. But in the long term, I believe that we should create certain environment, conducive environment at the Pakka areas. For instance, we should have a pull factors like proper jobs, proper shelters for the people who are actually living for a reason of joblessness for cultivation of fields or for fishing purpose. So we have to think holistically that we should create environment of pull factors. Since the push factors, I must admit the fact that the people in the riverbed areas voluntarily using water because they believed that this water could not impact their lives. But it is the government that has to decide, and the government has to decide according to the resources, according to the management, according to the capacity building of the local population. Apart from it, I must say that the community engagement through local stakeholder is also one of the essential elements that need to be enforced upon. We convince the people of the convince the local stakeholders to get their population evacuated. So it is a holistic purpose, not behavior change through the factors. Since my experience is that the people who are willing to leave their places with the 4 cubic water in the river, they can only leave their places into shelter when we create conducive environment, businesses for them at the Pakka area, people from the coastal area to the Pakka areas. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Coming all the way from Karachi, ADC Saab. Dr. Zainab, and I'll straight come to the question. From your experience in climate risk and environmental management, what are the most effective global or regional practices that have been successfully strengthened disaster risk governance at provincial or subnational levels, and which of these would be most relevant for SEND?
I think, in my view, the most effective disaster governance models are not the ones that respond fast when there is a crisis. They are the ones that institutionalize preparedness, integrate risk into planning and development, and secure risk financing earlier than disaster when disaster strikes. I think, and also they have to decentralize the technical capacities. The technical staffing has to be there. You cannot rely on the existing HR to manage the disaster, especially now when Sindh is facing not isolated shocks, but recurring disasters. One of the best examples that I can share here is the Bangladesh Cyclone Preparedness Program, where, and it is, their model is basically the disaster risk architecture that they have developed by training 70,000 community volunteers, and half of them are women. And those community volunteers are directly connected with the government departments and institutions. So unless and until your plans, emergency response plans and preparedness plans are not getting translated into evacuations, communications, and the adaptive social protection support to the communities, they're just theory on paper. Apart from that, another example is from Philippines, where they have made it mandatory for every municipality to have local disaster risk reduction department. And then they are supposed to allocate by law at least 5% of their budget in the form of disaster preparedness and 30% as quick response fund. And this is for every municipality. They have to do it. And you know that Philippines is most vulnerable to these kind of disasters that occur along the coast. So in context of Sindh, I think, and I must appreciate this RGF, especially the development of the disaster risk management units at district level, and then also the integration of digitization in the form of disaster information management system. I think one of the best things that I would propose here is the technical units, whether they are district management units or disaster risk reduction wings that are being proposed under RGF, this should not be affected whenever there's an election or change in the leadership, and their technical staffing must be bound through accountability mechanism. So the performance has to be linked with accountability mechanism. The technical staff, otherwise it's of no use, because I can relate to one example. We were working with the different stakeholders in Sindh around after floods 2022. One of the consultations that I organized was on hill torrents management, because that's another form of disaster that Sindh faced. And in 2022, it was one of the large form of disasters that affected the upper Sindh. So they said that the Disaster Management Authority representatives mentioned that the quantum of disaster was so huge that we were not able to assess how we are going to manage this much water that was coming down from Balochistan and from Punjab side and from the hill torrents, because it was continuously raining. The monsoon on steroids, as it was stated by different organizations. So I think that is the issue, was because they were understaffed and the technical people were not placed in the department. Another suggestion here is that there's a need to integrate this disaster risk reduction mechanism and translate it into development plans and integrate fiscal planning based on the vulnerability risk assessments. As you have identified 3 districts based on a select criteria, the speaker earlier was mentioning, I think risk vulnerability assessments are extremely crucial, that are aligned with data, GIS integrated data. If Tata has a vulnerability of, let's say, coastal related cyclonic activity disasters, Jamshoro has another vulnerability linked with heat waves, and then Dadu and Badin has vulnerability related to the flood water that comes from the hill torrents. So these vulnerability will assess, based on the assessment, they will define how the risk planning needs to be developed, and it will be different. Each district will have its own different planning. And based on that, the vulnerable groups will be different as well. So third suggestion is linking early warning systems that are directly connected with the communities. And so community involvement, as the speaker has mentioned here as well, is extremely crucial. Last but not the least, this is very important suggestion, because this is also mentioned in the RGF fact sheet that I was going through. Securing disaster risk financing, identifying local sources of financing. And I think here is your microfinance sector that can play a very important role, especially now when State Bank has also come up with the green taxonomy, and our microfinance sector, they do support the disaster struck areas, but that is not under preparedness, that is as a crisis management. But they do have mechanisms where they need to allocate those funds as part of capacity building and training programs, especially in context of the communities that are, the farming communities that are actually vulnerable. So microfinance sector is the key. Then comes your private sector, where they can be involved in context of their CSR and planning mechanisms and plans, Instead, when they, because they allocate that funding when disaster strikes, why not they allocate it before the arrival of the disaster? So preparedness has to be the key. It has to be proactive approach, not reactive. And I hope that RGF gets translated and scaled up along all the districts, not just within Sindh, but there's a big learning from this program for all other provinces as well. And I hope it gets adopted there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, and thank you very much for coming on a short notice. I'll move on to Shukri Saab and Sohaib. On RGF, lead consultant and DMIS lead for us. Shukri Saab, what question should I ask you on RGF? It was a challenge for me also, so I'll try to draft a question, and you know much more on RGF than anyone in this hall. And you can answer accordingly. The main aim of RGF, 3 pilot districts started few years back, was to institutionalizing disaster risk reduction practices at both provincial and district level. How successful were we in making this happen in the 3 districts, and what is the way forward? Please.
Regarding success, of course, this program is still running on. It started for only 4 months period. So government initially approached UNDP and FCDO themselves, and then they asked if they need assistance for disaster risk reduction. And then they support when they hired us, and when we reached in the field and asked various people. So they actually required some kind of technical assistance from us. So based on the analysis, we found that there are some institutional gaps there. Then there, of course, the digitization, PDMA do have a good DMIS, but it was initially meant for, it's a kind of centralized kind of system. So we proposed that it should be devolved and should be decentralized, and DCs should be given authority to manage, enter, and the third part was the financing, which Kashif have already said that finance is looking after for that, and they are definitely supporting. They already allocated sufficient fund for the DRR wing and DDRMUs in the 3 pilot districts, and they are also accepting, at least acknowledging the expansion of these 3 districts to other 20 districts. So hopefully it will be done. The last part in that which we identified the gap was linking with the community, but of course, prior to that, we functionalized the DDMAs, which was only symbolically present there, and they were reacting on the crisis or something like that. So we initially proposed that we should include local NGOs as a part of DDMAs, and then also suggested to include private sector. Then all 3 DDMAs have included members of chambers of commerce or something like that. So the representation from the supplier side, the production side, and the other members were also included. Crisis, the PDMA or even government needs supplies to provide so that they can provide direct assistance to the beneficiaries. So it was done. Now I'm talking about the early warning system. So early warning system is there, but the issue was the trust element. Government issues warnings, and then the local indigenous knowledge, always they have a clash. Now it's at least in 3 districts. What I noticed when we involve local communities during first year, then they recognize okay, through various mechanisms. Of course, now social media also help them to understand what's going on, and what indigenous knowledge, as well as the information given by the government from meteorological department and PDM and other, how they are reliable are that. So we believe through RGF, this linking with the community, it is a long process. It needs more effort in if I say for 5 or 10 years, because to change the mentality of people, except initially, like, for example, in Karachi, when I was a younger kid, whenever I heard there would be a rain or something, I always declined, no, because of the trust issue with the PMD predictions. So now, at least it's changed. So in RGF, what we did initially, we find gaps, and then we worked on the gaps, and the government prioritized those gaps, and then they took initially two elements. The work is the improving the structure of the PDMA as well as the district level, and then improving the policy level. The policy issues like to improve the business rule, which we did, and they are in the process of revising it. And then, of course, the DMS, which I believe Sohaib will inform what we have done in this. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you so much. And you've been involved in managing this whole event a lot. Thank you for all your support and coordination, and apologies for my frequent phone calls. Sohaib, on real-time digital dashboards, you are the technical lead. My question to you will be just like सूरज को चिराग दिखाने के उसमें है. How successful were we in these three districts in RGF on deployment of real-time digital dashboards, and what is the way forward, please?
Okay, thank you. Basically, when we started this project, we basically did an assessment, and based on human-centered design approach, we identified 6 core areas. Where basically the problem was first that there were several systems were there with the PDMA, which they were managing on the provincial level, but no system was on, like you can see it up to date on the data level. So what we have done first, the data entry level, where we basically identified the real stakeholder, that was a district. Usually what was happening, they were basically bringing all the data from using the letters, manual letters or Excel sheets or likewise, which was coming like 1 to 2 or 3 months, basically based on the request basis as and when required. So till the time that data receives to the PDMA systems, it's already expired basically data, or you can see that old data. So we basically first automated the whole process where we made the responsibility to the district line department, who is responsible to arrange all the resources on the district level. So now in the system, they are basically directly entering all those data directly in the system. The second part, we basically brought in the district administration, the DC offices into the picture directly. Instead of manually approving the data and sending it to the PDMA, they are now reviewing and validating the data into the DMIS directly. Third part, the DC directly approving, reviewing the data into the system, and then it comes to the PDMA to publish the data. Till the time it completes the whole cycle of 4-layer approach, nobody can see that data onto the system. So it only comes into the picture once it goes into the from the cycle of 4 approval cycles. So that's what we have done. Also, we have basically brought in, we have basically, you can say that from the excessive centralization on the provincial level, we basically went up to the level of district line department level, who is the key area or key stakeholder managing all the district disasters, basically. So they are directly into the system, managing everything. Now, then we basically focus on 3 areas, basically, 3 key areas, which I can say. One is the information. So we have done the integration with FFD, where you can see that there's a live information of flow of rivers, which you can see directly into the DMIS. And it was working absolutely fine. We have basically checked in the last flood 2025, and they were showing the very correct real-time information that, okay, this water layer is in the Punjab level and this level, and then it's entering on the Guddu barrage and then coming towards that level. Then the second layer, where we basically automated and brought in the population data, sourcing from the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics, which includes human, housing, farm, agriculture, and irrigation. And also we basically brought in the fisheries as well, but fisheries is not part of the PBS data, providing those data directly on the district level. Second, we basically brought in we have automated the resource mapping, which includes bringing all the NGOs on the district level into the system directly, the volunteers, suppliers, and in suppliers specifically the departmental stores, for the sake of getting the food stocks timely during the disaster time. Producers and manufacturers, schools, we have basically mapped with the school education management information system, so that we have all the schools with their facilities and mapped it whether they have been marked as relief camps, so that those can be used on the real-time basis. And then we have the hospital facilities and mobile units facilities. Hospitals where we have brought in all the hospitals on the district level like BHUs, RSCs, GDs, government dispensaries, maternity hospitals, and likewise with their staffs, with their equipments. And then the mobile units, which comes under two areas. One is 1122 for fire brigades or any of that, and then SIEHS, which is Sindh Integrated Emergency Health Services, to bring in all the ambulances. But there are ambulances which are managing by MRF, the NGOs in the district Thatta, DHOs, the district health offices. Similarly, the PBHI is also managing those ambulances. So we have brought in all those data into the picture. Then there are two areas which are more directly towards the response. One is the relief mapping, and we have tested this one directly with the CM Secretariat in the last flood 2025 as well. So it basically reports all the real-time reporting on daily basis, based on how many villages have been affected, how many relief camps have been established and identified, how many medical camps have been identified and established, how many patients have been treated within the 24 hours or 48 hours. Similarly, the livestock, how many livestock have been treated and their camps have been established or not. And then the last area, which is the losses and damages, more likely the post-disaster area, where we are basically recording the human casualties, the infrastructure damages, livestock and agriculture damages, as well as the fisheries damages. The damages data is the one which basically uses by the provincial government and eventually the federal government for the sake of providing relief to the people and the ones who have suffered during the disaster activities. So this is how basically we have done. And the last one, we basically brought in the mobile application to the picture, where all the data you can basically enter or review or view from your handheld devices, basically wherever you are, basically, because one of the key as a pointer was that during the disasters, the officials mostly moving from here and there, so they can basically update or review the data directly into the mobile application.
Formally closing the session, but before I do that, Shukri Saab, Kashif Saab, Adnan Saab, Sohaib, thank you for coming all the way from Karachi. Dr. Saab, thank you so much for the short notice coming to. Thank you all, and we'll now leave the stage for the next session.
After lunch, we have a session on for everybody's information, those of you who are not up to speed yet. Source revenue refers to funds generated directly by subnational governments through local taxes, fee, licenses, and charges. It provides financial independence and funds, reducing reliance on national transfers, allowing for improved local service delivery like sanitation, water, and infrastructure. To present and discuss OSR reforms, challenges, and opportunities, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Umar Mukhtar to please join us and share his feedback with us. Sorry? Oh, acha, they have a presentation. Sir, you want to give it to me? It's already been given. Laga dijiye presentation. Yes, sir, please have a seat.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Two major reforms were undertaken by the SNG-II. So I think this we have already had a lot of discussion about the various aspects of the reforms since morning. So we intentionally kept this OSR, the own source revenue generation, and the local government financial information management system at the end of this session. Why? Because I think this is important that during today's discussion as well, the local government has been highlighted throughout the day. And these two reforms are directly related with the local government and its work throughout Pakistan, I would say. But this particular reforms are being undertaken by the Punjab government and with the support of this SNG-II. We have heard today in the morning, Dr. Sulairi Saab talked about quite high-level IMF discussions and resource constraints, and government of Pakistan having discussion around it. But I think this micro-level thing is also equally important. And there has been discussion on the local government since many decades, I would say, to how to generate funds. I think this innovation that has been undertaken under the SNG has broken that thinking around only raising the taxes and generating money, rather than it is focusing on the service delivery, improving the service delivery, provision of the service delivery, and then charging it to the people. So that both community level participation is also there, and from the institutional side, it is well institutionalized. And then there is a lot support has been provided on how to ensure that the institutions work as well. I will not go into the detail, but the team, Umar Mukhtar, led by Umar Mukhtar, and the two team members are going to go into detail. Although this is going to be, when you see the slide, these are many slides, but we know that we have only half an hour now, and we have people who have amongst us have had lunch as well. So nobody's going to be that alert, but we will try to make you alert. Over to Umar Saab and his team. Thank you.
Thank you, Kausab. And thank you everyone for being patient. First of all, I think I must thank FCDO for giving us the opportunity to work on SNG, and then you and SDPI for providing the platform to present the work that we did under OSR. I'll be brief. I'll just sort of skim through the sort of context and what was the impact of the reform that we did. And then I'll request Umar Saab to sort of conclude with the key lessons learned and some policy implications that are very important. So starting with the context, you all must agree that local governments lie at the heart of the architectural framework on the governance and basic services that it provides to the citizens. So their performance is linked with their ability to generate revenue. As if we talk about Punjab, so predominantly the local governments rely on the revenues that they get from Provincial Finance Commission Award under Interim PFC Award. So, and over the period of time, the shares have either shrunk or are stagnant, which means that the ability of the local governments to perform the basic functions which are mandated according to the Local Government Act, they are not being able to do that, and it pushes the government bill for expansion of their own source revenue base. This is a finding which is consistent with the global literature of decentralization. Same is the case in India. The greater Bengaluru Municipal Corporation and Hyderabad, and also in Dhaka and Colombo, the local governments were performing well. Their main sort of distinguishing feature is their ability to generate source revenue. And this creates a vicious circle. When you're working in the field and interacting with the local government officers, it is a sort of a vicious circle. So if the local government does not have resources, it will affect its ability to perform the functions in a better way. If they are not giving good services, the people, user fees and charges, they will not be paying those charges because the services are not given correct. So it creates a vicious circle from which the local governments can only get out if they create a sustainable SR base. So, and this also erodes the trust between the citizens and the local governments. As I said, that they are the first tier which are performing services and provides a basic link between the government and the people. So that citizen trust or social contract has eroded over the period of time because the local governments are not financially sustainable. So just a quick snapshot of the initial pilot that we did in Rahimyar Khan under SNG. So what we did was initially we did a diagnostic. So it was a need assessment. The existing 3 to 5 years sort of budgetary estimates and actual receipts that were being done by various local government, by the MC in Rahimyar Khan. So after that, we developed an analytical sort of assessment of it and then developed revenue mobilization plans. And then we set out targets through a roadmap approach. And we conducted quarterly stock takes, which were led by deputy commissioners, who can be termed as the reform champions for this one reform. And we see here that it led to substantial increase in the own source revenue. So if you look at from the fiscal year 2022-23 to 23-24, SR increased substantially. And if you look at the next year, so aggregate there was a 97% increase in OSR by basic data analytics, development of revenue mobilization plan, the leadership role of the deputy commissioner led by the stock picks, and its monitoring and effective accountability mechanisms, also led by the servers and mobile applications, which provided evidence-based baseline also. So building on the work in Rahimyar Khan, we continued that in Sialkot and Kasur. These are sort of revenue streams. There are many revenue streams for own source revenue of local governments, but we targeted 3 major revenue streams. One is which is the predominant ones, is the construction and the building fee, and use conversion, which we call it. The other is the municipal properties or the shops, which have a rental value and which are a major source of revenue for local governments. And the third one is the majority of the local governments, they provide work to the citizens. So they charge a minimum sort of user fee from that. So we targeted these 3 OSR dimensions. And we did an analytics of that based on our business case of Rahimyar Khan. We had GIS enabled servers as well, and they both like stock picks, and we'll see in a while that it led to a lot of improvements. So starting with the provision of water, you'll see that over the period of 2 fiscal years in 2024, 25 and 25, 26, there was a substantial increase in the returns of the revenue from water provision in Chunia, same as the case with Kolkata Kishan. And Patuki is a uniqueness because, and this also shows that in various reforms, you cannot have solutions across the board. There will be different contexts in different areas. Unosa will be highlighting those factors like political economy and the sort of other factors which impact and improve the performance of the local governments. In this table, I want you to focus on the last column, which essentially shows the collection efficiency. So, irrespective of the fact that whether there are leakages or the local governments are not collecting revenues from existing registered users, the percentage shows that the total registered users, let's say in Chunia, were 3,721, which were registered users of water. And even from those registered users of water, the MC Rahimyar Khan staff was able to collect only 49%. So we're not talking about some rocket science or some new intervention. Even by just fulfilling their basic sort of deal, which is to collect revenue from the users who are using this facility, would have increased the revenue manifolds. Same is the case in Sialkot also. Sialkot performed very well in 24, 25, but the dip in 25, 26 is because of the fact that the function of water was taken from MC Sialkot, and Vasa has now been installed in Sialkot. So the water provision and sanitation functions are now being built by Vasa in Sialkot. So this alludes to another important factor in the sort of debate about own source revenue and sustainability of local governments, is the fact that the government consistently changes the functional jurisdictions, and there are consistent changes in laws, which leads the ability of the local government to generate revenue sustainably, because they're not sure whether this function will remain with them in the next financial year or not. I'll move quickly. This is the same about the MCs and Sialkot. I'll move to the next sort of major stream, which was building plan on land use conversion. This is very important. And this is one of the reasons why we see mushroom growth of our urban centers, and you see housing societies everywhere, national development and non-adherence to the master plans. So this is one of the functions of the local governments. Sialkot, these are substantial. Let's say in 24-25 to 25-26, there was a massive increase of 114%. And these figures are for the first 7 months of the corresponding years, because since we were closing the in January, so these figures are comparative figures for June to January of the 3 years that we are showing. This is sort of a snapshot of the year-on-year change. So Sialkot has performed brilliantly, same is the case with Pasur and Sambadan. This is for the MCs in Kasur. You can see the baseline is very low in Kasur. This is again because of the fact that the function of land use conversion was with the Lahore Development Authority. So this is another issue that the District Planning and Design Committee, which is the approval forum for land use conversion in all these cases, the power was with the Lahore Development Authority for the whole Lahore division, and Kasur was part of it. So we also advocated for that and the efforts of the local sort of government and the deputy commissioner. The function was given back to the municipal sort of committees in 25-26. So you see a bigger jump. This is for 7 months, and we are hopeful that this will next years. If you come to rent of shops, this is another tricky area. So all the local governments, they have their shops in the top notch localities of the cities. So in Kasur, in Sialkot, in the best area of the city, they have the shops owned by the local government. But the rent that they get from these shops is very minimal. So a single shop, according to a shop owned by the MC, which is owned by a private person, gets, let's say, 1 lakh rupees per month as rent, whereas the government gets only 10,000. So one issue was the rate rationalization, and the other was there was no sort of data or evidence that which shop is with which tenant, they're not being revised, and contract enforcement and regulatory issues are also there. So this is another issue, another sort of issue that we highlighted. So in this head, since the sort of margin for improvement is not that much, because the rates of rents are locked for 3 years and they are revised periodically. Excuse me, presentation. Okay, so I'll switch to this one. This is important. So as I mentioned, the rates of the shops have not been revised over the period of time. So we also advocated for that, and we pushed the respective local governments to revise their groups of shops and make them sort of near the market rates. So Kasur, the MCs in Kasur did that. So the potential revenue, let's say in Chunya, they're currently getting 4 million, and with the revised rates, they'll be getting 51 million. So it's 1,000% increase in the revenue just by revision of rents. But the sad part is, which is another sort of important factor when we consider local governments and their sustainability, the matter is now sub judice because many of the shopkeepers, they've gone to courts and obtained stay orders. However, it is a step in the right direction, and the district government is trying to vacate the stay order. And if it is done, it will be a sort of jump in the local government. Another important sort of set of whole work was the service that we did. Sadly, all of the local governments, but in this day and age, they function on manual systems and manual registers. They don't have an evidence-based baseline through which they can assess what is their true potential. So just as a case, we did surveys in 2 local governments, but I'll be discussing about one regarding the water provision in Patoki, and the other was land use conversion in Sambaral. So on the left side, you see about Patoki. I'll be discussing in detail in the next slide. For Sambaral, we had Assistant Commissioner Sambaral, who is the administrator of local government in Sambaral, MC Sambaral. He was here with us, and he was telling me that based on our survey, which was GIS based, he has started giving notices to the parties and properties which are do not have the requisite government NOCs and approvals, and that has led to enormous increase in their revenue from this head. So, survey what we basically collected was like in water survey, what it was we mapped the MC and the water connections in that MC. So we looked at whether water supply connections, let's say the government the manual register was showing 1,300 water connections, whereas when we went into the field, actually the number was very higher and they were not paying user charges. Same is the case with the building control survey. There are many properties are being sort of constructed, whether commercial or residential. By law, they have to get approval from the respective municipal committee or council, and they also have to pay government revenue for change in land use or building control. But they are not doing that, and we identified a lot of properties within that survey. If you see on the right-hand side in Samral, for example, there were around 6,800 residential properties which were unapproved, which we found in our survey. It's a geotagged survey, so we have the longitude, latitude, locations, pictures, and everything, details about that property. And if you go to commercial, so it's a huge number, 7,600 something. Is the number. These are the commercial properties which have been constructed without getting the requisite NOC and without paying the government dues. So even half of this is by the local government, and which I mentioned, the assistant commissioner, he has given notices based on these survey, will lead to a substantial increase in the revenues of the government. So I think that was a sort of major snapshot of the work we did in these three streams. I request Umar Saab to share the lessons that we learned and some recommendations. Thank you.
Everyone. Thank you, Kamran. So I think Kamran just ran it a bit fast, but this is for us, this was a very interesting presentation on what can be done at the local government level, despite no local bodies election, despite always this local government act in the flux. So some lessons learned for us were that the understanding the political economy of own source revenue at local government level is the key. For example, if I take water, what we realized later on once we started that people consider water as an essential service. People consider cleanliness as an essential service. People consider sewage disposal as an essential service. So at times, it's a bit tricky to ask them to pay any recovery fees against that. And then also that also brings that chicken and egg problem that they say that the service is not good, so why should we pay? So I think I would say that first the service should be improved and then we should go for cost recoveries. Similarly, the alignment of incentives. Own source revenue at a local government level is not a key priority for most of the stakeholders. Be it district administration has many other things on their plate. Similarly, the local government officials have different incentives. The local politicians, as we can well understand, have different incentives. So this is not a priority for anyone. And with a cash kind of surplus at a provincial level, nobody is really pushing the local governments to increase their revenue collection. There is what we found that very limited financial and enforcement capacity in most of the local governments. There were some good exceptions, but in most of the time we found the capacity to be very limited. Digitization, we have seen it a bit like hands-on that it's all manual registers. Manual register. So actually it's like you can add the name in, you can take the name out from these manual registers. The collection is mostly cash based. So it's interesting that the whole revenue stream, now the government is doing something around it, but it's in a very, I would say, pilot phase. Again, a very important issue which we learned was that there is very limited visibility of finance, the local government finances, the province and the local government. Once the revenue, the allocations are released to the local government, the provincial government has very limited idea of what's happening at the local government's level.
I've talked about this need for advocacy, and then we all know about the political ownership, importance of political ownership for these OSI reforms. I think last but not the least, and the most important lesson for us was that despite local government elections not happening, despite local government acts being in flux all the time, there's a lot of space we can improve revenue collection. So some of the policy recommendations that came out of our work to institutionalize the stock take system, which we do a stock take with the deputy commissioner every quarter. And in that stock take, the deputy commissioner looks at the performance of these local governments 3 months back and the plan for 3 months forward. And we saw that just because of these stock takes, the efficiencies of revenue collection started improving. We also recommend periodic GIS surveys for all 229 local government, whether it's 3 years or 5 years, government can decide. But this also gives us a very clear understanding of property by property, the revenue, kind of like the taxpayer base, how it can be expanded. So it gives us a lot of information which can be used as Kamal mentioned. In Samrial, we actually found that there were 14,000 properties which need to pay their tax, and that tax amounted to around rupees 1 billion. Imagine if we are able to even get 25% out of that 1 billion. Similarly, strengthen enforcement of building plan and land use fees, because this is the major revenue channel in the current framework. Rent of shops, two issues. One, the rent rates, the other is the collection. I think the government needs to focus on both of these issues. We also recommend that there should be performance-linked fiscal incentives for local governments who are doing better or who are meeting their quarterly revenue targets. I think one very important recommendation is to digitize this whole billing and the bill collection system end to end. We found its total manual, and this exposes us to all kind of leakages and inefficient collection. Lastly, I think, and this, we cannot overemphasize that we found that most of the local governments have very limited institutional and human resource capacity. They don't have financial capacity. They don't have much planning capacity. There are good people out there. But, and we actually saw, for example, if we had more time for this presentation, we would have shown you in allocation for that matter. Because we found that the chief officer is there for a couple of years and he is really a bit more aggressive in his working. So all the indicators were much better. And we also saw in Daska, whether it's rent, shop, whether it's property tax collection, whether it's water fees collection, Daska, you will find there is some issue with the local bodies administration. So we recommend that government should do a proper need assessment and strengthen the institutional and human resource capacity. With this, I think I'll end my presentation and happy for any question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Umar. Presentation. We specifically asked you to conclude it in 20 minutes, and I'm glad that you have done this. But we are also, I mean, I've gone through with you over the last 6 months or so. There has been a lot of work been undertaken under these two reforms. I mean, which cannot be basically captured into your 4 or 5 or even 10 presentations. I mean, the level of interaction this team had with the local government has been such a way that even by saying that political ownership are 2 words, but when you go through this political economy, then you will see that how difficult it is for having this reforms at any level. What to say about the local level? You have highlighted some policy recommendations. I think those are all very relevant. The human resources, the stock take, GIS-based survey, and enforcement of building rules and regulations. All of these are the key reforms that initiatives that need to be undertaken. by the institutions at the local government. So open for question answer. If there is any question, yes, Keswat Saab, please.
Very much, Umar Saab, Kamran. We know the results, and I think excellent presentation. This has been an excellent initiative, and the results that he showed really speak to what the Minister of Planning was saying, that governance should be all about service delivery and results. So I think we saw a very good example of that. Just a thought on the lessons learned. So as the program comes to a close, have we done planning to do any lessons learned exercise with the government so they can maybe adopt and sustain this model or maybe take it to scale?
Yeah, thank you, Kaisa. What we did was that in the last 1 month or so, we met the respective both government, local government officials in the district with the deputy commissioner, as well as provincial at the provincial level with the local government department as well as the finance department to just try to embed and take these reforms forward as we go. So that was the best we could do. That and in the last 6 months, and rather it's not just 6 months, it's probably now more than around 2 years. We have been pressing, and the deputy commissioner are seeing the improvement in performance. So we are very hopeful that this stocktake process would continue in future. Like Kamran mentioned, that the AC Samdayal was here, and he is already using our data, the GIS-based survey data we did to basically to send notices to people who are supposed to pay their taxes. And he was telling us, I mean, we don't have the figure right now, that it has gone, I mean, markedly better as of now. Thank you.
Very much. Wonderful presentation, great results. I'm aware that you also waste management, and the approach that you took, as you mentioned in here, was an end-to-end policy cycle approach. And since the solid waste management is a direct service delivery, and this part was essentially a source revenue connection. In terms of the application of the approach, how do you compare the application of the approach, taking it from the solid waste management to the SR? How difficult it was to kind of introduce that to an area which essentially leads to service delivery, but is not direct service delivery?
Thank you, Natsab, for a very pertinent question. Firstly, just for the audience, the sanitary function now, as far as Punjab is concerned, has been given to, under the Sutra Punjab initiative, has been outsourced. So now sort of private companies are performing these functions, and local governments are no more enrolled in the function of sanitation. As far as the end-to-end approach is concerned, to put it simply, it's an approach wherein rather than sort of the TA focusing on one element of the whole sort of spectrum, which involves analysis of the problem, identification of the issue, then analysis of data, development of an intervention, application of an intervention, monitoring, accountability. So it's an end-to-end solution where you pick an issue, you understand it, you devise a solution, you implement it, and then you monitor it, the whole spectrum of its policy cycle. So the same approach was applied to the issue of own source revenue, as I mentioned in Rahim Khan also, wherein we started off with diagnostics, with understanding the issue through data analysis of the budgetary profile of these MCs, and then we identified key areas, what are the loopholes, what are the potential areas wherein they can improve. Based on those assessments, we developed their revenue mobilization plans, and those plans were presented to the deputy commissioners in the stock takes, which created a sort of a sense of monitoring and also accountability within the local government hierarchy. So in the sense, it was a sort of a smooth transition. I think it is an approach which you can take to any other service delivery or public policy area.
I think I completely agree that actually there is there is no rocket science about this. I would say approach. It's just simply putting in a very structured way, and this can apply to actually whether it's air pollution, whether it's solid waste disposal, whether it's
revenue collection, whether it's any other service delivery, actually any other problem. You can just, by doing a structured analysis and then presenting it to the decision makers, and time over time, and routines are important, that you do it, you decide that you do it every 2 months, every 2 months, every 2 months, and things start a bit improvement. We have seen this happening in education. We have seen this happening in health. So yeah, thank you.
So thank you, especially for basically SAP in detail. Sir, उस agriculture income tax पर सर notice the potential of agriculture income tax in terms of being a sustainable source of revenue, because there are lots of uncertainties associated with our agriculture units and crops. So how do you see what's the future of agriculture income tax in terms of provincial OSR?
Just before Musab answers it, I just wanted to highlight the fact that same analogy with the local governments. If I say that the pie of the provincial sort of total consolidated fund is 100 rupees, so 80 of it comes from NFC award. So the provinces also, just like local governments, predominantly rely on the share from NFC, and their ability to generate OSR is very low. But over the period of time, provinces have improved it, as in the case of PRA, Punjab Revenue Authority, the excise. But I do agree, agricultural income tax is a grey area. But before Musab answers, I think for Pakistan, sadly, it is an issue of which involves a lot of political economy, a lot of interest groups. So they have tried both the income-based and the sort of yield-based systems. However, I think it's a tricky question. The issue of commodity debt, you have also seen. The government is not going into wheat operations, has not been taken well by the farmer community. So if the AIT, I think, is pushed further, or the rates are immediately rationalized, or I think it will have ramifications for the government politically.
So, Fiasab, I think Kamran answered it in a substantive way, but I also feel that if I'm not wrong, this is actually not really my expertise, but I think there is a constitutional issue around it as well, that this is a provincial tax as against the federal tax. And the other thing is that, if you ask me as a technical person, so tax should be on income. It should not be whether it's agriculture, whether it's trade, whether it's retail, whether it's any other. I think, and I hope that as the pressure on us from IMF or internally increases to increase our revenues, slowly we will start pushing frontiers on whether it's agriculture income tax, whether it's retail tax, whether it's tax from wholesalers, which are all, currently we all know that it's the salaried class which is taking the brunt. So yeah, it's technically it's easy to say, but politically we all know that it's a difficult question. Thank you.
सादा सा सवाल है कि केपी में रिसेंटली जो कंप्लीट की उसमें इसी किस्म के इख्तियार दिए गए काइंड ऑफ अथॉरिटी वाज गिवन टू एक तो ये कि आप लोगों ने इस पर बड़ा काम किया है केपी और पंजाब गवर्नमेंट के साथ शॉर्ट कंपैरिजन पंजाब में जो लोकल गवर्नमेंट है और केपी में उसमें फर्क किया है और ये जो इख्तियार न देने की बात है to the local governments, KP especially, और एहतजाज करते करते तक गए दफ्तर दे रहा था लोगों को, मतलब हमारे जो तहसील करते वो भी बेचारा एहतजाज करते तक गया, उनको कोई दे रहा था, नहीं एहतियात दे रहा था. My question is, the bureaucracy is the main hurdle in giving powers to the local governments or itself politicians?
I'll start and I'll request Kamran to add in. the way I understand, थोड़ा सा इसको जो जिस तरह मैं समझता हूँ, मेरे ख्याल में it's not about politician or bureaucracy, it's about the elites. कि जो एक आपकी elite है जिसमें bureaucracy भी है, जिसमें politicians भी हैं, किसी के शायद उस तरह इंसेंटिव नहीं है कि लोकल गवर्नमेंट बहुत एम्पावर्ड हो। अभी एसएम साहब तकरीर कर रहे थे एंड देन यू रियलाइज के इतने अरसे बाद अगर हम अभी भी कह रहे हैं शुड बी एंड इट शुड बी, तो वो कई दफा आपको थोड़ा सा अजीब लगता है। बट एज फार एज द कमिटमेंट टू लोकल गवर्नमेंट इज कंसर्न, माशाल्लाह ऑल ओवर पाकिस्तान वो एक ही है कि वो स्ट्रेंथन नहीं उस तरह उसको किया जाता। बट जो हमारा पॉइंट था ना इस प्रेजेंटेशन में, वो ये था कि चाहे वो लोकल गवर्नमेंट की इस वक्त जो भी इलेक्टेड लोकल गवर्नमेंट की हम बात कर रहे हैं ना, जो मेरे ख्याल में इस वक्त पता नहीं कहीं है या नहीं है, मोस्टली शायद नहीं है, या जो लोकल गवर्नमेंट एक्ट्स हैं वो हर वक्त चेंज होते रहते हैं। हमारा ये ख्याल है कि विद इन दी करंट फ्रेमवर्क, वेदर इट्स केपी, खैबर पख्तूनख्वा, वेदर इट्स पंजाब, वेदर इट्स सिंध, उसके अंदर भी अभी इतनी स्पेस है कि जिसमें अगर आप सिर्फ वो स्पेस के अंदर काम कर लें तो आप रेवेन्यूज, एटलीस्ट हम सिर्फ रेवेन्यू की बात करें कि वो बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ाया जा सकता है। तो दिस इज टेक ऑन इट।
और उसमें ना जो एक यूनिक चीज है लोकल गवर्नमेंट के हवाले से, बाकी ये ऐसा समझे आपके जितने भी आप रेवेन्यू इकट्ठा करते हैं ना, फॉर एग्जांपल अभी हम बाहर जाएं और हमारा चालान हो जाए तो वो भी गवर्नमेंट की किटी में जाता है। इस तरह से कोई टैक्स आप पे करते हैं, टोल पे जाते हैं, तो ये सारा समझ ले कि एक कुआं है जिसमें जा रहा है और बाद में वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होगा और वटेवर। लोकल गवर्नमेंट का रेवेन्यू यूनिक रेवेन्यू है कि ये डिस्क्रिशनरी है। मैं लोकल गवर्नमेंट हूँ, मतलब यहाँ का, मैं यूसी का हूँ, मेरे वहां का जो टैक्स है वो मेरा है। मतलब इस तरह का तो एक यूनिक केस है ना। जनरली बाकी सब जगहों में ये होता है कि सब कलेक्ट होता है एक जगह पे और फिर एक फॉर्मूले के तहत डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होता है। तो इसमें सिर्फ मकसद ये है वो सारी एक्सरसाइज का कि जैसे सर भी कह रहे थे कि वेदर इलेक्टेड हो या नॉन इलेक्टेड हो, का मेन कंसर्न क्या है कि उस म्यूनिसिपल कमेटी का काम क्या था, गंद उठाना, स्ट्रीट लाइट्स साफ हो, सैनिटेशन ठीक हो, पीने का पानी मिले, ये जो बेसिक फंक्शन है आम आदमी के, वो उसके ठीक चले। आए वो एक इलेक्टेड लोकल गवर्नमेंट आइडियल केस में इलेक्टेड होगी तो मेरे ख्याल में वो ज्यादा बेहतर परफॉर्म करेगी। लेकिन अगर वो स्टेटर भी चला रहा है और वो एफिशिएंटली चला रहा है, लेकिन इशू यही है कि वो रिसर्व नहीं होगा। लेकिन आई एग्री विद यू कि सैड बात है कि हमारे मुल्क में लोकल गवर्नमेंट्स को उस तरह से एम्पावर नहीं किया गया, वेदर इट इज लीगल एम्पावरमेंट कि उनको वो पावर्स दी जाए, या फिर उनको फिस्कल डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन, जो कि मेरे ख्याल है शायद 2001 के सिस्टम में किसी हद तक उसमें वो फिस्कल डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन थी, लेकिन वो
सर जस्ट तो स्टोरी आपको बताऊं, 2001 के जो या दो हमारे डिस्ट्रिक्ट में 2004 में हुए थे, 2004 में या 3 में। अच्छा, वहां पे लोगों को लाया जाता था और कहा था, कहते थे कि हाथ उठाओ जो ये टिके या ये टिके। ये तो इलेक्शन का तरीका कार था हमारे वहां जो लोकल गवर्नमेंट बन रहे थे। उसके बाद फिर 30% कोटा उस वक्त चूंकि मेजर नहीं था, पॉलिटिकल एजेंट के लिए रखा गया था कि पॉलिटिकल एजेंट विल नॉमिनेट 30% ऑफ द लोकल गवर्नमेंट रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स, और पॉलिटिकल एजेंट उस सरकर्दा मलकान को नॉमिनेट करते थे जिनको मुख्तलिफ कमेटियों के सरबराह बनाया जाता था, और फिर पॉलिटिकल एजेंट की मर्जी के मुताबिक फैसले करते थे। ये हाथ तो होते थे हमारे वहाँ वो ट्राइबल एरियाज में। अब ये कि मुझे लगता है कि लोकल गवर्नमेंट के जो लोग भी आते हैं, सबसे पहले उनकी कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग होनी चाहिए। उनको कि मेरे पास इख्तियारात क्या है, मुझे काम क्या करने हैं। वो तो सिर्फ मिसाल पे दस्तखत के लिए बैठे रहते हैं। और उनको ये मतलब इसलिए मैं बता रहा हूँ कि ये आपने बहुत ज्यादा काम किया है सुबह से हम जो देख रहे हैं। तो इट इज अ वेरी ह्यूज वर्क and should also be focused on capacity building of the local government representatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. जी डॉक्टर साहब।
Thank you, Jay. Check. I think ये कैसा एजेंडा है सबको दो चीजें stopping them to tap that other than digitalization. कार्ड क्या स्ट्रक्चरल फैक्टर्स हैं जो लगता है इससे पोटेंशियल को टैप करने से कमी है। तो ये इसको आप सॉफ्ट क्लब कर सकें which is my fundamental जो क्वेश्चन का पॉइंट पर हूँ। I think सेटिंग सारी सोर्स ऑफ शायद सेटिंग्स में तो बात है बट सी as local governments जो है roughly 40-50% of Pakistan क्या क्या सोर्स रेवेन्यूज हो सकते हैं क्योंकि ये होता है प्रॉपर्टी का आपका होगा या म्यूनिसिपैलिटी का होगा दिस इज वेरी इफेक्टिव इन अर्बन सेटिंग सेटिंग्स इस एनालिसिस के अंदर
मैं सर ले लूं पहले जी I'll answer the second question first. अच्छा इसमें क्योंकि हमने ये फोकस पंजाब पे किया था मैं उसी की एम्बेट में रहते हुए आपको बताता हूँ जितनी भी जो पब्लिक सर्विसेज है ना मतलब जो मेजर है वो अर्बन सेंटर्स में दी जाती हैं पानी की प्रोविजन रूरल एरियाज में नहीं होती सैनिटेशन प्राइमरीली अब तो सुथरा पंजाब में पूरे पंजाब को कवर कर रहे हैं लेकिन वो अर्बन एरियाज में होती है स्ट्रीट लाइट्स हैं पॉट होल्स हैं बेसिक जो फंक्शंस होते हैं वो सारे अर्बन एरियाज में होते हैं पंजाब में जो लोकल गवर्नमेंट्स है ना उसमें रूरल एरिया को देखती है डिस्ट्रिक्ट काउंसिल जिसे जिला काउंसिल कहते हैं और उसके अंदर फिर अलग से जो फंक्शन कर रही होती है यूनियन काउंसिल्स भी कर रही होती हैं जो बेसिक फंक्शन ये पैदाइश का इंदराज निकाह वगैरह इस तरह की चीजें वो कर रहे होते हैं सो जो म्यूनिसिपल कमेटीज हैं उनकी जो अर्बन लिमिट्स में जो काम करती हैं वो सर्विस प्रोविजन भी करती हैं और उनके पास टैक्स कलेक्शन के एवेन्यूज भी हैं जो जिला काउंसिल है उसको गवर्नमेंट इन टर्म्स ऑफ अगर मैं बजट बात करूं तो दे आर ऑलरेडी वेरी सेल्फ सफिशिएंट जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट काउंसिल है उसको प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट बहुत ज्यादा बजट देती है क्योंकि जो प्रोजेक्ट्स होते हैं ना आपने देखे होंगे कि पॉलिटिशियंस करवाते हैं कि नालियां पक्की सोलिंग ये वो तमाम डिस्ट्रिक्ट काउंसिल के थ्रू होती हैं स्कीम्स जो होती हैं उनके ओन सोर्स रेवेन्यू का जो आउटलेट है ना वो बहुत छोटा है अगर उसके अंदर देखें ना कि आप मुझे बताएं कि एक गांव के अंदर हम क्या एक फी या टैक्स लगाया जा सकता है पुराने वक्त में शायद ऑक्ट्राय या वो होता होगा लेकिन अब तो सच ओन सोर्स रेवेन्यू का पोटेंशियल डिस्ट्रिक्ट काउंसिल के अंदर तो मुझे खास कोई नजर नहीं आता जो तक की मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग में कोई ऐड करना चाहे तो कर दे दूसरा आपने बात की थी कि व्हाट इज स्टॉपिंग लोकल गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल्स फ्रॉम कलेक्टिंग मैं इसको उल्टा कहूंगा कि क्या चीज है जो उनको पुश करे कि वो करें जाके मतलब मैं जस्ट से बात करें कि लोकल गवर्नमेंट के ऑफिशियल्स है ना वो बड़े आराम से अपना काम कर रहे हैं ये तो आप हमने उन्हें पुश किया है ना सुकून से अपना काम चला रहे हैं मैनुअल रजिस्टर है जैसे मैं एग्जांपल देता हूँ 100 एक लोकेलिटी के अंदर पानी के कनेक्शन है जिनका रजिस्टर में दर्ज है कि ये 100 लोग हैं 100 घराने हैं जो सरकार से पानी लेते हैं इनसे हर महीने आपने 100 रुपए कलेक्ट करने हैं ठीक है क्या पता कनेक्शन जो है अगर मैं एविडेंस बेस्ड डेटा कलेक्ट कर लूं तो पता चले कि 100 की बजाय नहीं तो 500 को जा रहा है क्या पता पानी 500 पे ही जा रहा हो वो जो बिल क्लर्क है वो जो ऊपर वाले 400 है उनका पैसा जेब में डाल रहा हो तो जब डेटा आ जाएगा उसकी जीआईएस मैपिंग हो जाएगी तो उससे पूछगिछ शुरू हो जाएगी जो कि अब इन केसेस में हुआ जो मैंने बताया समड़ियान में देखें कि पूरे शहर अगर आप गए हो सियालकोट में मेन डेवलपमेंट है वहां पे स्पोर्ट्स का भी बड़ा काम है इंडस्ट्री है तो शहर का शहर एक्सपैंड हो रहा है रोजाना नई नई दुकानें बन रही हैं वो जो बिल्डिंग इंस्पेक्टर है उससे पता होता है कि नई दुकान कहाँ बनी है और उसने शायद अंडर हैंड उससे कुछ पैसे भी वसूल कर लिए हो जब हम डेटा तो उसका कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है कि डेटा कलेक्ट हो जाए जीआईएस मैपिंग हो जाए कल को उससे डीसी या उसका एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर पूछेगा ये नई प्रॉपर्टीज बनी है इनकी फी किधर है सरकार की ट्रेजरी में दिखाओ तो ये थोड़ा सा उनका इंसेंटिव नहीं है कि वो डेटा की तरफ जाए या एविडेंस की तरफ जाए कोई और बात
इसमें एक चीज और ऐड करूंगा जो आपने बात की डिस्ट्रिक्ट काउंसिल्स के एक्सपेंडिचर्स इतने नहीं होते वेयर एमसी के एक्सपेंडिचर बहुत ज्यादा होते हैं अर्बनाइजेशन हो गई है पानी भी प्रोवाइड करना है उन्होंने डिफरेंट सर्विसेज भी तो इसलिए डेफिसिट में जा रही होती है ओन सोर्स रेवेन्यू इकट्ठा कर रही होती है वेयर डिस्ट्रिक्ट काउंसिल से होता है उनके इतने ज्यादा खर्चे ही नहीं होते हैं तो वो काफी ज्यादा फंड्स होते हैं वो सफिशिएंट होते हैं अपने फंड्स खर्च के
जिस तरह ये कामरान ने कहा ना कि उनको इंसेंटिव क्या है जो लोकल गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल्स हैं उनका देखें वी ऑल नो देयर मे बी एन इनफॉर्मल इकोनॉमी गोइंग ऑन और हमें नहीं पता कि वो उसमें किस तरह कलेक्शन हो रही है क्या नहीं हो रही बट उनको कोई अब प्रोविंसेस हैं वो कैश सरप्लस हैं वो एक खास अमाउंट जो कि 70-80% ऑफ या इससे भी ज्यादा बजट है वो लोकल गवर्नमेंट्स को दे देते हैं, उनसे कोई पूछता नहीं है, दे आर नॉट हेल्ड अकाउंटेबल. दिस सिस्टम इज ओनली डूइंग दिस थिंग के जो हम कोशिश कर रहे थे उसको पुश करने की कि अकाउंटेबिलिटी थोड़ी सी बढ़ जाए कि डिप्टी कमिश्नर का टाइम ही नहीं होता कि वो लोकल गवर्नमेंट से पूछे कि आपने वाटर कितना कलेक्ट किया है, इस दफा आपने शॉप रेंटल सारे कर लिए, उसके बाद टाइम ही नहीं होता. वी जस्ट वांट टू स्ट्रक्चर दिस इन ए वे के वो सामने उसके स्क्रीन्स पे आए इन ए स्ट्रक्चर एंड देन ही स्टार्ट पुशिंग देम. थैंक यू.
थैंक यू वेरी मच जी. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. सेशन को यहीं खत्म करते हैं. थैंक यू वेरी मच. नेक्स्ट.
We now move to that session of I would like to invite the summary of
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. Thank you for staying. There's been a bit of attrition, but given that it's a Friday and it's post-Ramadan, what can we do? So thanks to all of those who remain. I just want to start off by talking about just summarizing SNG-II and what it meant for the UK and the FCDO here in Pakistan. So it was a major commitment for the UK here in Pakistan. It was a £30 million investment. Its purpose was to strengthen core government systems in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Punjab. Its purpose was also to modernize planning and budgeting, and also to strengthen institutions, which then lead to enhanced accountability. And the intention of the program was always to have long-term systematic changes, not just short-term fixes. And I think it did that, as the evaluation shows. And I'm happy to say that, looks like we'll have sustainable results that can outlast the program life cycle. And I would like to thank SDPI for the evaluation. There's an independent, impartial, credible, and transparent evidence product, which means that it's robust and reliable for us to draw on. And that would then contribute to learnings and also to demonstrating accountability back to the UK taxpayer, and also vertically upwards to our ministers. So that's a very important part of today. And the other side of it is that those learnings that come out of this, they can be transferred across beyond the governance portfolio, across the mission, the UK mission here, because the UK mission here is working across the education sector, health, climate, different development areas. And ultimately, lessons can be drawn from this evaluation that will then lead to improved public service delivery and therefore strengthen the social contract. So I would also like to recognize progress that's been made on OSR, own source revenue, and risk governance. So on the OSR side, it was very it's very good to see that, with the KP Revenue Authority and the Provincial Revenue Authority systems, how we've seen the modernizing of municipal revenue processes, and also is giving these provincial governments the ability to expand the fiscal space responsibly. And also on disaster risk governance, it's good to see that the program equipped the provincial institutions with better systems to plan, monitor, and respond to climate emergencies. All of this all of this reflects what the UK is looking to do more going forwards in this difficult and a more restrained environment where ODA budgets are not where they used to be. And that is about smart targeted investments. And this is a clear example of a smart targeted investment. I'd like to also just say that throughout, UNDP has been a deeply valuable partner, and their approach on working shoulder to shoulder with partners, beneficiary partners, has been absolutely incredible. And I also want to recognize those beneficiary governments, the provincial governments, who helped carry this work forward. That was I'd like to celebrate that today. And the evaluation and the content of this evaluation really recognizes that. And as we can see, SNG-II has shown that steady, well-designed governance reforms can make a real difference. So I'd just like to close by just saying thank you to everyone and everyone that's involved, UNDP and OPM as well, and all the beneficiary partners that we've been engaging with. It would not have been possible otherwise. And I'd also like to thank SDPI again for this evaluation, this evidence product, which will be very useful for a lot of interventions that may come forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yusuf and FCDO. I think the kind of analytical depth and rigor that we see in this evaluation would be possible without you and your support. Really shout out and thank you to the SDPI team, Irfan Saab, Alia, Suleiman Saab, and I'm so glad that Dr. Sajid is here. Dr. Zain, a very last note to the risk governance panel, and all of you have been great. And I do know that we were two colleagues sitting at the table, and they've been really good and valuable. So thank you very much, SDPI, and thank you, UNDP team. So I'm glad that they stayed. And our own coordinators, there's Zulfikar Saab who led this initiative today. And we've got people in from provincial governments. We've got Shukri and Suhaib from Karachi, Umar Saab, Kamran and Anu. So thank you very much for being here today. We're already tired, but I'd also really like to emphasize that Tanveer Saab and Marine have also worked very, very hard to make today a success. Thank you, all of you. That's all I really wanted to say. Let's all have tea and see you soon.